This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, this is my fourth session. I hope you have attended my previous three sessions and all are uploaded on YouTube channel. So if you didn't check that, you can go and check that. So these are my things. And today I will discuss about log archive dest and attributes parameter. Actually, this is very important initialization parameter where n is basically an integer between 1 to 31. Okay, and from 12c we can configure 30 standby destination, and so total we have 31. One is for local and 30 for standby. And there are many attributes which we can assign with log archive dest and initialization parameter. So those attributes today I will discuss. So almost from 19C we have 17 attributes. So first one is affirm and no affirm, then alternate, then compression, then DB unique name, then delay, then encryption, then group, and then location and service. And in location and service, location is not supported from log archive destination 11 to 31. So log archive destination 11 to 31 especially only for standby and mandatory keyword, and for that it is not supported for log archive dest 11 to 31. And then max failure, net timeout, no register priority, and reopen, and sync and async. And sync is not supported for log archive dest 11 to 31. And template and valid for. So each database in Oracle data guard configuration typically has one destination with the location attribute for the archival of the online and standby redo logs, and one destination with the remote attribute for every other database in the configuration, right? So if suppose you configured log archive dest 1 to log archive dest 10, destination must contain either a location or service attribute. Okay, and but log archive dest 11 to log archive dest 31 destination, it will contain only service attributes, and all other attributes are optional. Okay, so log archive dest 11 to log archive destination 31 can only be used when compatible parameter is set to 11.200 or later. Okay, and many attributes of log archive dest and initialization parameter have been deprecated. So these attributes are supported for backward compatibility, and so I'm not going to discuss that. Only 17 attributes which I had mentioned, I will discuss only those. And so the first one is the affirm and no affirm attributes. So these attributes basically control whether a redo transport destination acknowledge received redo data before or after writing it to the standby. Okay, so so affirm, when you are giving affirm, so it will specify a redo destination acknowledge receive that redo writing after writing it to the standby. And no affirm specify basically redo destination acknowledge receive redo data before writing it to the standby redo log. Okay, so these are the two options, and in that this is the way you can define. So in a form table you can see that there is service attributes required, and for no affirm service attribute is required. And you can check v dollar archive dest view, where in affirm column you will see about the values. So this is the affirm and no affirm. And And if you are not defining affirm or not no affirm attribute, then the default is affirm when the sync attribute is specified, and no affirm when the async attribute is specified. So affirm attribute without the sync attribute is deprecated and will not be supported in future release. Okay, so you need to give like log archive dest 3 equals to service equals to, suppose service name is standby 1, and then sync and then affirm. So like this you can define that. Okay, and without sync affirm you cannot define. So you need to define sync and affirm keyword both together in your log archive destination attribute specification, right? And the second one is alternate. So alternate attribute basically tell the alternate archive destination will be used when the original destination fails. Okay, suppose I have two things. Suppose I am going somewhere and I book the train ticket also and I book the plane ticket also. Suppose I miss by chance flight, or miss I plan, so I can go with train. Okay, so that is alternate solution for my traveling. So same way for archiving, you can specify two things. One is the location, which you use first, and if suppose that destination fails, then you have alternate attribute. So you can define by this keyword. So like this way you can give that alternate equals to log dest n, and n is the value from 1 to 10. And if alternate destination is not specified, then redo transport services do not automatically change to another destination. Okay, and you can check alternate and status column from $archive dest, and from 12.201 you can expand the number of alternate archive destination by using the group and priority attributes. So these are the new attributes which introduced in 12c, so that we discuss later on. So if in that, if suppose the alternate attribute, as I said, is optional, and to configure an alternate destination, so you can set a log archive dest state and parameter to alternate, and also that state of alternate should be enabled, and any destination can be designated as an alternate destination with the following restriction, like at least one local destination is enabled, and the number of enabled destination must meet the log archive min succeed dest parameter value. So that is another usage actually condition where you can specify minimum succeed destination, and also you with this parameter or attributes you can do that. Okay, and destination cannot be its own alternate. So when a destination fails, its alternate destination is enabled on the next archival operation, and if alternate destination is not specified or max underscore failure is set to the 0, then archiving services do not automatically change to another destination if the original destination fails. So you can specify like that local archive dest 1 equals to location equals to the path, and then mandatory and max underscore failure equals to 1. So you are telling that failure equals to 1. So you have alternate destination is log archive dest underscore 2. So you need to enable both the destination. Log archive dest state 1 equals to enable, log archive dest state underscore 2 is equal to alternate. So you will tell that this is alternate, and log archive dest 2 equals to location equals to disk 2 and mandatory keyword. Okay, So to resuming archive to the original destination, that is log archive dest1, you must re-enable it manually. Then you must reset log archive dest to its former alternate state to avoid having two archiving active local archiving destination. So for that, you need to set again one, and you need to set log archive desk to alternate. So like that, you can do that. Got it? Any questions? Okay. So third is compression. So compression attributes is basically specify whether the redo is compressed before transmission to a redo transport destination. So redo transport compression is a feature of Oracle Advanced Compression option, but you must purchase a license for this option before using the redo transport compression. So that is the condition. And category is compression equals to enable, disable, zlib and lzo, that is the algorithm. And enable, disable zlib or lzo. By default, it is disabled. And from $archive dest view, you will have a compression option or compression column, so you can check that. Okay. And the enable option enable compression and uses the zlib algorithm. When you enable, so it will use by default zlib compression algorithm. And the compression attribute is optional. If it is not specified, the default compression behavior is disabled. Okay. And so you need to enable it, and you need to use it if you want. Okay. And the fourth parameter is DB unique name. This is very important. In previous lecture, I have told what is DB unique. So basically, it is a unique name of the database at your destination. So basically, when we configure data guard, so DB name is common for all my production and standby. So how you will define identify which one is standby, which one is production. So DB unique name will tell that this is production, this is standby. So DB unique name will be different for production, for standby 1, standby 2, standby 3, like that. Okay. And the string it is, and you can define by DB unique name equals to name of the standby. And $archive dest, there is a column DB unique name, you can check that. And this attribute is optional, and it defines with the log archive underscore config parameter. So log underscore archive underscore config equals to dg config. Then at the end, you will define db underscore unique name. Okay. So if it is a remote destination, then service attributes will be required. If it is local destination, then the service attribute is not required. Location keyword is required. So suppose your DB unique name is Boston. So you will define log archive underscore config equals to dg config equals to Chicago, comma Boston, comma Denver. So Denver. So whatever the things is there for your standby database name, you can define like that. And the fifth attribute is delay. So delay attribute is basically specify a minimum time lag between when redo data from the primary side is archived on a standby side, and when the archive redo log file is applied to the standby database or any standby cascade. Okay, so this delay attribute is in minutes. It can be greater than or equal to 0. Default value is 30 minutes, but it requires the service attributes. And there is a $archive dest view where you can find delay underscore mins column and destination column. Okay, and with this is the way you can check that. And by default, there is no delay. And delay attribute may be used to protect a standby database from corrupted or any invalid data, primary data. So the delay attribute does not affect the transmittal of redo data to a standby. If you have real-time apply enable, then if you set, excuse me, delay, then it will be ignored. And you can override the specified delay interval at the standby. So suppose you want to set alter database, recover, manage standby database, no delay. So this command will reset the delay things. Okay. So suppose I am saying log archive desk 3 equals to service equals to service name, then delay equals to 120 minutes. So my archiving data will be applied after 2 hours. Okay. So this is the things of delay parameter attributes. Got it? Then encryption. So the encryption is used to specify whether redo data is encrypted before transmission to a zero data loss recovery appliance. So redo transport encryption allowed only by connection to a recovery appliance. So if you are configuring encryption on a log archive destination other than a recovery appliance, it will give an error. So that is the important point. And encryption equals to enable or disable, and by default it is disabled. And $archive dest, there is a column, encryption column, that will show that whether encryption is enabled or not. So if you are using encryption attributes, so your parameter, your compatible parameter is 11.204. So from 11.204 this parameter introduce or attribute introduced, so that's why you can use only from 11G4 release. Okay, so you can define log archive desk 3 equals to service equals to service name, then encryption equals to enable. So like this you can use that. And this group attribute is a new parameter, and groups can be specify membership in a specific collection of log archive destination. So it has 1 to 8 and the default group is 0. So the default group is populated with all destination that are not explicitly assigned to a group. Okay. So in that there is a category of integer, value is 1 to 8, and required attribute is service. So how you can define? You can say set like this: log archive desk 1 equals to service suppose standby 1 group equals to 1, then log archive desk 2 service equals to standby 2 group equals to 1. So so you have 2 service, but that 2 destination belong to 1 group. Like that you can define that. Okay. And the another attribute is location and service. So each destination must specify either the location or service. If it is location, it means local, it is for local archiving. And from destination 1 to destination 10 you can use either a location or service attribute, but from destination 11 to destination 31 only you can use service attribute. So that is the condition, and this is the way you can define that. So there is a destination and target column of $archive desk view which will tell that. And service keyword, when you are assigning, then it required net service name. If you are using location, then it will ask location, local disk directory path, or if you are using flash recovery area, DB recovery file desk, so that use DB recovery file desk should be defined. So this is the way you can do that. Okay. And if you are specifying multiple attributes, then specify the location or attribute first in the list of attributes. Okay. And you must specify at least one local destination with location attribute, and when you specify a service attribute, then you can specify the net service name, that is the service equals to keyword. And to verify the current setting for location and address attribute, you can check $archive dest view that I told you right now. Then ninth is mandatory attribute. So this mandatory attribute specifies that filled online log must be successfully archived to the destination before they can be used. So from 11 to 31 destination parameter do not support the mandatory attribute. Remember that. If mandatory attribute is not defined or specified, then the by default the destination is considered to be optional, and at least one destination must succeed it, even if all destinations are optional. So if archiving to an optional destination fail, the online redo log file is still available for reuse and may be overwritten eventually. So if the archival operation of a mandatory destination fail, online redo log files cannot be overwritten. So this is the benefit of mandatory keyword. And with that you can define also log archive min succeed underscore dest equals to n parameter, where n is an integer and its value is 1 to 10. So it will specify the number of destination that must archive successfully before online redo log files can be overwritten. Okay, so all mandatory destination and optional local destination contribute to satisfying the log minimum succeed destination equals to n parameter. Okay, so suppose you are setting log archive minimum succeed destination equals to 2 and or 1, then you are giving log archive destination 1 location equals to the path of the local disk, and then mandatory, then log archive dest state underscore 1 equals to enable, then log archive dest 3 equals to service name, then mandatory, then log archive dest state underscore 3 equals to enable. So like that you can define that. So you must have at least one local destination which you can declare mandatory. Okay, so then you can use log archive minimum success destination parameter is 1. Okay, then max failure. So max failure attribute controls the consecutive number of times at a log switch that redo transport services attempts to re-establish the communication and transmit redo data to a failed destination before the primary database gives up on the destination. So this parameter is very important, and the max failure attribute is handled differently in Oracle database 12c and 12c release 2, but for till 11g it is handled differently. Okay, so what is that actually? So first you need to check that it is a numeric value. Its value is greater than 0, and by default destination is 0, and required attribute, and you are using a max failure in 12c release to 12.2 or above. So for that you can use the new group and priority attributes. If the error count reach the value specified for the max failure attribute, then the destination enters the error state where it remains until it is found to be accessible. It is checked periodically depending on the value specified for the reopen attribute. And for default destination in log archive groups, those redo destinations that do not use the new group and priority attributes, then the behavior of the max failure attribute is the same as it is in 12c release 1. So what is 12c release 1? So in 12c release 1, when you specify max failure attribute, you must also set the reopen attribute. Okay, reopen means you how it will try again to the connection. So once the failure count is reset to 0, whenever the destination is modified by alter system set, then it will avoid the problem of setting the max failure attribute to a value less than the current failure count value. And when failure count is greater than or equal to the value of the max failure attribute, then re-attribute values is implicitly set to 0, which causes redo transport services to transport redo data to an alternate destination. Okay, so like that you can control about this. So suppose I am specifying log archive destination 1 equals to location, then local destination path, then reopen equals to 5, then max failure equals to 3. So what does it mean? It means redo transport services to try reconnecting up to 3 consecutive times at log switch to the failed destination, excuse me, as long as each log switch is more than 5 seconds apart. So if the archival optional operation fail after the third attempt, then the destination is treated as if the reattribute was not specified, and the destination is marked as permanently failed until you will reset. So this is the way you can control that. Okay, and then net timeout, this is the another attribute which actually specify the number of seconds that LGWR background process will wait for a redo transport destination to acknowledge redo data sent to it. And if acknowledge is not received within the times of your second which you specify, then error is come and redo transport session to that destination is terminated. So basically it controls the acknowledgement. So net timeout is a value in seconds, by default 30 seconds, and it requires sync. So basically synchronization means it requires the confirmation. Okay, and if and $archive dest there is a column net timeout, so you can check the attribute value is there. So almost all attribute comes in $archive dest. And from 12c release 2 means 12.201, there is a new database initialization parameter, that is data guard sync latency, which is global for all synchronous standby destination. It defines the maximum amount of time in second that the primary database may wait before disconnecting the subsequent destination after at least one synchronous standby has acknowledged the receipt of redo. So suppose you are setting log archive dest 2 equals to service name, then sync, then net timeout equals to 10 second. Okay, so then this is 10 second, specify the timeout value for the acknowledgement. Okay, if within 10 seconds it will not get the acknowledgement, then it will give an error. And the 12th attribute is no register attribute that will indicate the location of archive redo log file should not be recorded at the corresponding destination. So the no registration attribute is optional, and it is required if the destination is not part of data guard configuration. So by default, there is not applicable. It requires the service, and there is a column destination and target column from $archive dest. You can check that. And log archive dest underscore 5 equals to no register. So the attribute pertains to remote destination only, and the location of each archive log file is always recorded in the primary database control file. And this attribute must not be used in Oracle data gate configuration because that has no downstream golden gate mining setup. So using no register in this scenario may cause problem during switch over operation. So when you want to do the switch over operation, so first check this attribute, otherwise it will create a problem. Excuse me. Then the another attribute is priority. Basically, it is used to specify the preference within a collection of log archive destination, and its value is from 1 to 8. Default value is 1. It requires the service attribute, and yeah. So the priority attribute is always used in conjunction with the group attribute, to provide an orderly enabling and fallback of numbers of the group. So suppose you are saying log archive dest 1 service equals to standby 1, sync group equals to 1, priority equals to 1. Log archive dest 2 service equals to standby 2, sync group equals to 1, priority equals to 1. So I am giving the priority of log archive dest 1 and dest 2. So that's why it will take that location first. Got it? Excuse me. And if I am setting log archive dest 3 equals to standby 3, then group 2 priority 2. So suppose if my standby 1 or standby 2 fails, then the primary shifts to standby 3. Okay, clear? So this is the way you can define that. And the reopen, as I said, it will retry the redo transport services by specified destination. So its value in second, it is greater than equal to 0 second, and default value is 300. And there is a reopen underscore sex SECS column in the $archive dest where you can check that. And redo transport attempt to reopen failed destination at lock switch time. And reopen applies to all errors, not just connection failure. If you specify reopen for an optional destination, then it is possible for the Oracle database to overwrite online redo log files if there is an error. If you specify reopen for mandatory destination, then your redo log file will not overwritten. So this is the things you need to understand that. So you can define like that: redo log archive dest 3 equals to service equals to standby 1, mandatory reopen equals to 60 seconds, like that. Excuse me. Then sync and async. So sync basically synchronization, means required confirmation. Async means two process working independently. But if you are specifying sync, then two process will work together. So suppose LGWR is writing the redo logs to the redo log files. So before writing it, it will wait for the confirmation from the standby if it is sync attribute. If it is async, then log writer will not wait for the confirmation from the standby. It will write into the redo log files. So that is the difference. So if you know synchronous IO and asynchronous IO, so that is the things. So by that there is a transmit underscore mode column which will tell you about these attributes things. And as I said already, destination 11 to destination 31 will not support the sync attribute. And on primary database, destination 1 to 10, the default is async. And on physical standby or snapshot standby or far sync instance, destination 1 to destination 10, default to ARCH transport mode. Okay. And from 11 to 31, that is LGWR. And always 11 to 31 is async. And you can specify like this: log archive dest 3 service equals to standby 1 and sync. Okay. So from 1 to 31, basically 1 to 10 only async or ARCH will be applicable. Okay. For other, you have LGWR. So by two process basically transfer the redo, LGWR and ARCN. And the another attribute is template, which basically define the directory specification and format template for the names of archive redo log files. And basically template is used to generate a file that is different from the default file name, which you define in log archive format initialization parameter at the redo destination. So like this, if you want to change the attribute then you have to set like this: template equals to file name underscore template underscore %t %s %r. Okay, so and remote underscore template is the column, and register column in v dollar archive dest. So usage is the template attribute is only valid with the remote destination, so it requires the service attribute, and template attribute overrides the log archive format initialization parameter if you are setting explicitly. So this is the important thing you need to understand. And %t means is stands thread number, %capital T means is specify the thread number, zero field, small s log file sequence number, but if you are giving capital S, then it will with the zero field. Then %r, it will specify the reset log ID. If you specify %capital R, it will specify with zero field. Okay, now the last attribute is valid underscore fall. This is very important attribute, basically we use generally. So valid attribute, valid underscore for specify redo data gets returned to a destination. So you can whether the database is running in primary or a standby. So whether online redo log file you are using or a standby redo log file you are using, or both you are using, so you can specify here. So like that, you say valid underscore fall equals to all log files, all roles. Okay, so basically the first value is redo log type, and the second value is database role. So from $archive desk, there is a column valid now, valid type, and valid role. So these columns will tell about this. Okay, and the usage is redo log type keyword can be online log file, standby log file, and all log files. So what is the meaning is that online log file means destination is only valid when archiving online redo log file. Standby log file means when you are archiving standby redo log files, and when you are specifying all log files, then destination is valid when archiving either online or standby. And in database role, you have three values: primary role, standby role, and all roles. Primary role means when the database is running in the primary role. Standby means when the database is running in the standby role. And when you say all roles, then database can be a primary or can be a standby. If you do not specify the valid for attribute for a destination, by default, archiving online redo log files and standby redo log file is enabled at the destination. Okay, and you can specify like that, log archive test one location equals to path, then valid underscore for equals to all log files and all roles. Okay, so this is the way you can define. Okay, so thank you. This is the 17 attributes which I have covered. I hope you all get to familiar with this, and when you use in your production or testing, then you will get to know what is the effect of these attributes and what is the benefit of these attributes. Okay, so my source is online documentation, and if you have anything you can contact me here, and if you have any question you can ask me.
This conference will now be recorded.